guy or girl I like get offended, I got news for you. If the people you're hanging out with now won't let you let your light shine, they probably aren't worth it. It's not your fault if people don't change. It's only your fault if you don't try. So, where are you? Are you blazing for the Lord? Are you dim? Have you been hiding your light? Or is your light completely out? Someone who really let their light shine was Elijah. He not only let his light shine, he let God's light shine through him. Elijah lived in a time where worshiping idols was a huge problem. He was being accused of being a troublemaker by Ahab, the king. And Elijah calls him out in 1 Kings 18, in verse 18. And Elijah says, "I have not made trouble for Israel." Elijah replied, "But you and your father's family have. You have abandoned the Lord's commands and have followed Baals." Then Elijah tells Ahab to summon everyone from Israel and for him to bring the 450 prophets of Baal, and they're going to have a showdown on Mount Carmel. Then, once everyone is there, Elijah calls out to the Israelites and challenges them not to be a lukewarm follower. Verse 21 says, "How long will you waver between two opinions? If Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal is God, follow him." But the people, they said nothing. But what would you say? What could you say? What side would you choose with a 450-1 matchup? Pretty unfair. Verse 22 says, "Then Elijah said to them, I am only one of the Lord's prophets left, but Baal, he has 450. So the challenge has been set. The game is on. But what are the odds of Elijah winning this?" Continuing on, Elijah tells Baal's prophets to choose a bull and for them to set up their altar. This continues in verse 24. Elijah says, "Then call in the name of your God, and I will call in the name of the Lord. The God who answers by fire, he is God." Now, the game is on. In other words, Elijah's saying, "You feeling lucky? Well, do ya?" He lets the prophets start, and they carry on till lunchtime. The whole time they're dancing around their altar, doing their weird stuff they did back then, and nothing happens. But Elijah, he starts to begin the good old taunting now. Elijah starts calling them out and starts trash talking them. Verse 27, "Shout louder," he said. "Surely he's a god. Perhaps he is in deep thought or busy. Or maybe he's traveling. Maybe he's sleeping and must be awakened." So they shouted louder and slashed themselves with swords and spears, as was their custom, until their blood flowed. After this, still nothing happened. So it was time for Elijah to bring in the fireworks. Elijah calls the people to him, and he rebuilds the altar of the Lord using the 12 stones for the 12 tribes of Israel, and digs a trench around it that was pretty big. Now pay attention that Elijah makes an altar to God. No one else, not just a random altar for an off-the-street god. He made it for the Lord. After this, in verse 33, he tells the servants to pour huge pitchers of water on it. "Do it again," he said, and they did it again. "Do it a third time," he ordered, and they did it a third time. And the water ran down around the altar and even filled the trench. I mean, this thing is getting flooded here. This is a major disadvantage. How can you start a fire when your altar is soaking wet? This is like one hand but tied behind Elijah's back. But still, he confidently went on trusting the Lord. In 37, he prays to God, "Answer me, Lord, answer me." So these people will know that you are Lord, are God, and you are turning their hearts back again. Then the fire of the Lord fell and burned up the sacrifice, the wood, the stone, the soil, and also lift up the water from the trench. Talk about power here. This fire completely ate through the sacrifice, all the stone, the soil, and all that water instantly. Talk about fear. Think how scary it would have been to see all this happen. And this is the people's response in verse 39. When all the people saw this, they fell prostrate and cried, "The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God." As you can see, Elijah stood on his own by the altar of God. He didn't have his friends to back him up. He had himself and God. That would take some guts. If God didn't show up for Elijah on that hill, he very well would have died that day. But even then, he still stood and trusted God. He even trusted God so much, he began taunting the worshippers of Baal. He had to say God was asleep, or maybe on vacation. Let's just say, if God didn't show up for Elijah, he was in a world of hurt. But God did come through. But we also need to realize what Elijah prayed for. He didn't pray for God to light his altar or for him to shoot fire out of the sky. He asked for God's will to be done. And it was. Sometimes in our life, we need to follow this example. We need to do this. Because nowadays, it's all about my way. We always try to do it our way. Our way or the highway. Our way is the only way that works. We're perfect. Our way is the only way that can possibly work. We forget we aren't God. We're supposed to let His light shine. We aren't bringing people to us. We're bringing people to God. So, we need to let God work through us. There's a story at a rally I really liked. There was a godly man that had passed away, and he was just getting into heaven. He was flying around, checking out the grand tour, seeing everything, and he sees a gigantic library. And he asks around, finds out that is the library of everyone on earth. So curiously, he goes, finds one of those cool Mac computers, because they have those in heaven, looks up his name, and finds a huge book with his name on it. And he starts flipping through the pages, and he gets kind of confused. He sees a bunch of stuff that he remembers he could have done good stuff, could have let his light shine, but he didn't. In confusion, he sees Jesus and asks him, "What's with this book? What is this book all about?" And Jesus answers, "Oh, this isn't your life story. This is all the chances I gave you in your life to let your light shine, but you didn't." Then he was handed a book, maybe the 50th of the size, and then he realizes that is what he'd actually done with his life. I really doubt there's a library in heaven like this, but it does teach a good lesson. Think of all the chances you had just in this last week to let your light shine, and you didn't. just in this last week,